So, we're coming to the end of another year. 2021 will soon be in the rearview mirror, and it's been a pretty wild year. It's been a fast year. It's gone by so fast, but it's been a good one. And as I'm recording this, it's November 10th, which is kind of an odd day to be doing a retrospective on the year. But November 11th, tomorrow morning, is a pretty important day for myself. It'll be exactly 1 year since I uploaded a new video here and kind of kicked off the whole GPLaps thing again. So I wanted to do a video just to talk about GPLaps and go through some questions and things that I've gotten and just talk about things because it's been a really fun experience over the last year. And before I lose some folks, because this isn't going to be the normal car review or race review or track review or anything like that, I just wanted to say thank you for checking out things over the last year. It's been so much fun to interact with everybody and chat in the comments or over email and find out about all these different sims and tracks and cars and history that I didn't actually know things about in the past, and learn all about it and then present it to everybody. It's been an awesome thing to sink myself into over the last year, and appreciate everybody that also enjoys it and tunes in as well. I think I said at the end of the last IndyCar 2 live stream, but a lot of this stuff is things that I would be doing anyway, even if I wasn't putting it on YouTube, doing full races or series or checking out different cars and tracks. So the fact that I can make some videos out of it and then interact with folks and talk and learn more about the different events and things is absolutely awesome, and it's been definitely a gift over the past year. To keep things interesting, I am here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife 60s version with the Porsche 904 that was just released as a part of Baza's GTC pack. And this Nürburgring Nordschleife, I think the Nürburgring overall is a little bit overdone, but I love this classic version of it, and I've had it in several videos, but it's kind of my go-to track. I know the track really well, and so it's fun to take new cars here and run them around. It's a really pure track, just asphalt and grass, no walls or anything, just a nice track, gives you a good thrill for driving. And this Porsche 904, this isn't going to be a video about this car really, but I'm sure I'll talk about it at a few places. Really cool car. It's, I think, the first car that was built kind of with airplane principles in the body construction. It was basically constructed like an airplane, super low to the ground, very fast, kind of set the mold for all the Porsche prototypes throughout the late 60s and into the 70s, and a lot of other teams copied that. I think this one came out in 1964, if I'm remembering correctly. So really cool car. It drives really well, especially compared to the other GTC cars. It's so low to the ground. It's very light, not as much power as the other ones, but it definitely has enough power for the power to weight. And around a track like this or anything twisty, it's kind of an ideal car to have. All right, so we'll roll away from the start line here and try to do a leisurely lap around the Nordschleife, but it's not super easy to go slow in this car, so we'll see how leisurely it is. But yeah, November 11th of last year, uploaded the first video to this channel in quite a while, since earlier in that year, and before that it was a lot longer. But I can't remember exactly why I uploaded that. It was Automobilista 2, the 70s F1 cars at Interlagos in the wet. And I think it was something to do with just the effects as I was trying out that sim for the first time. I just thought it looked really cool, and there weren't a lot of videos out there about Automobilista 2, especially with the 70s F1 cars at the time, so I thought it'd be nice to throw one up. And it was a lot of fun, so I did another one, and then I did another one, and then it's been a year, and I think I've done over 145 videos and streams. There's been 145 different things on the channel over the last year. I counted before this, which is a lot of things to put out, but I think it goes to show it's been a lot of fun to do this, and a great hobby. I think everybody's been looking for things to do the past couple years, and YouTube has definitely turned into that thing for myself. Uploaded my first video to YouTube back in 2008, almost run wide there, which is a long time ago, 2008. It was just a place to upload some clips at the time. I think some of those are still there if you go back. There's some R Factor clips and some Grand Prix Legends stuff. And never any intention, there wasn't even a thing to make YouTube any sort of thing back then. But it's around 2010. This car just absolutely carves up these turns, quite nice. It's 2010, 2011 that I started doing the 1965 series for Grand Prix Legends, and that turned into its whole own thing and was a ton of fun to do at the time, and I'm happy I finished that. when I did, and recently had to go back through it, or got to go back through it to put together the compilation. Let's see if I get some air here. Oh, as we come to Flugplatz, it's pretty good. But I got to go through all those old videos and pull out some of the best parts for a little compilation I put together before the 66 season. It was really funny for myself to go back and listen through those, because 2010, 2011, I was actually in college at the time, and just reminded me so much. I just could instantly remember everything about that time, and so a bit transformative in a way to go back and think about it. But now, quite a long ways on, almost 10 years, or over 10 years on from that, my God. And back to it somewhat, but more than ever, the growth over the past year, I think it's maybe partially just how many folks are on YouTube now, or that sim racing is quite a lot more popular, that we all have more time. So we'll go diving down the hill here. Should probably have geared the car a bit longer, but it's all right for this. I think maybe we just all have more time, but yeah, it's been a lot of growth. I think this time last year I had about 5,000 of you all, and now we're over 30,000. And subscriber numbers and all that just truly have not been the whole reason that I've been doing this, but it'd be neglecting something to say that I don't look at it, because it's nice to have more folks to interact with or feel like things are growing in a way. It's addictive, that part of it, and I can see how folks get trapped, and I'm actually pretty happy I'm a bit older now and doing this, because I do worry about some of the younger folks doing YouTube and how addictive that can really be, to feel like the numbers are the thing that matters. But all of that's been fun, and the growth has been pretty incredible. And I've enjoyed the diversity of stuff we get to do here. 145 different things. The live streaming has been a big part of it. Trying to run wide through here. Always almost clip that berm there. It's easy to do. Some secure fencing on the inside there to protect us. But live streaming, it's been a fun thing. It's a challenging thing, and it's always a little bit nerve-wracking. I get the same feeling doing a live stream that I used to get when I first started online racing, honestly. And I think everybody that's done, whether it's iRacing or whatever, for me it was iRacing, the first serious online racing I did back in that 2010, 2011 time frame. And I get so nervous to do a race, especially one that really meant something, or that I qualified well for, because I wanted to turn it into something good. And that type of feeling I always felt, if you're nervous about something, probably because you're learning, or you're really pushing yourself in a way. So live streaming is something that gets me that now. I don't really do the competitive online racing as much as I used to, for better or for worse, but the live streaming definitely does, and it's a great way to keep yourself honest with different things too. It's very easy to try to redo videos or races, or if I'm doing an offline series, hope it won't spoil anybody's fun, but if I have a silly crash 5 laps in, or the race itself just isn't that good, I can just opt to redo it, and definitely do in some circumstances, because I want it to be an entertaining race or a good video. Never fix things, but it's always, want it to be entertaining. Online or doing a live stream, you can't do that. You just go live, you're doing the race, hopefully everything works out, and kind of pushing yourself through times when it doesn't work exactly correctly makes it more entertaining, I think, at least for myself. And then interacting with people live is a lot of fun too, but definitely nerve-wracking to go and do some races live. Has definitely improved my abilities as well in both just running things and streaming and all that. So the live stuff is good. The IndyCar 2 live streams I've wanted to do IndyCar 2 videos for a long time. That's up there on my top list of sims. And so to be able to do a full season live like I've done, it's been kind of the perfect combination. I don't think I would have thought a year ago to do that as a live stream. I think I would have done it as videos, but I'm happy it's a live stream instead. And I hope folks like that as well. Come through the carousel here. Not so bumpy in this car. Maybe the carousel on this track isn't super bumpy, but gets through there nicely. Underneath the Reifen banner there. The track is so narrow up here too. It's one thing that strikes you about the old Nürburgring, is how narrow it is overall. Yeah, but outside of the live streams, like the kind of bread and butter thing, or the thing I think of probably less folks think of it now, but the 1960s series with Richie Axelson and all that. That's kind of my thing that I think of when I'm doing YouTube, or if I'm thinking what my YouTube channel is and why folks would want to watch it. It's probably that series, but if I look at the view numbers, it's really not that series, although a lot of folks like watching those and I get great feedback on it, and it seems to be the thing when I see my name mentioned somewhere that somebody talks about. If I look at pure views, it's not the thing that gets the most, but it's not super important to myself. But yeah, doing those videos is a lot of fun. I feel almost bad that it's been almost 2 months now since I did the last one. I've been working a lot on the next one, which is the Targa Florio, which is why it's taken so long, because I decided to do a documentary in the middle of it about the Targa Florio, because I want to use the conversion of that circuit from GTR2, but I thought that track for the longest time just hasn't gotten the recognition that it should have, since it's been converted to pretty much every sim that's out there, and nobody knows really where it came from. I just think it's a cool track. If I just go and do a race at it, just felt like it would do it injustice. So I decided to do the documentary in there, and then it's actually pretty difficult to do some racing around there offline. That event is run as time trials. Just weave our way here. There we go. Come out into the open finally. That race was done as time trials, right? Cars released at, it's disputed what I've seen, but 30-second or 2-minute intervals, depending on the field size, I think. Down to third gears, easy corner to run a bit wide on, very conservative there. But 30-second intervals, releasing cars and sending them around the track, and then it's cumulative time that wins you the race, so you don't necessarily have to pass anybody. But yeah, no sims work like that. There's no sims out there that do time trial races that I know of that you could do the Targa Florio in. But GTR2 has been a good sim for the sports car stuff. I think it's just clip the dirt there, try not to run wide, get on the straightaway. I think I'm geared pretty short here, so we'll max out very quickly in 5th gear, already up there. Stare down the long straightaway. I loved how this straightaway had these bumps in it in the past. Oh, we're very short geared, only hit about 200k. That's all right. So GTR2, it's a good sim for the sports car racing overall, but even with the Targa Florio, it's something that would struggle somewhat. So we'll try to get ourselves to the end of the straightaway, just maxing out the gear, come over the top, lift off. Alright, there we go. But I think I figured out how to do it, and it's probably one of the next things that'll come out here. I just gotta actually do the race and everything with it. But very excited for that, because I really want to continue the 66 series, because I think of it myself as kind of the main thing that I want to keep going. I would love to be able to do that week over week. Certainly won't happen like that, maybe some weeks, but we'll want to get to the actual F1 season, which isn't super far off. Come across the line. We'll do a whole nother lap at least. 5th gear here. Always tricky to brake for this first corner, because if you do a lot of out laps, you never know how fast you're going coming up to it. But even back when I was doing the 1965 season for that, I was thinking how awesome it would be to do a lot of different series. And so expanding it to do kind of every race in order, I've compiled a massive calendar of all of the races and all of the series that happened in 1966 and put them in date order, and then I'm building a logical schedule. So I'm saying, obviously F1 is the main thing, so anything that also occurs in an F1 day, strike that out. But then thinking about what a driver at that time would do, or taking a look at what Dan Gurney and Jim Clark and all those drivers actually did in 1960s, 65, 66, 67 for races, and just building a schedule like that. And the one event that I can't do that I obviously want to do so bad is the Indianapolis 500. I thought for a while that I might be able to do it with that Xbox sim, Indy Legends. More of a game, honestly, but it's a great one. But it just doesn't. I tried it out. It's too easy, unfortunately. I tried it on the max difficulty, and it's just very easy to win, and it's just not enough of a simulator, and filming it and things, it's not the best looking these days. So I do want to play that game or take a look at that game sometime, maybe do a live stream with it or make a casual review, but for fitting it into that series just wouldn't work. So there really is no 60s Indianapolis 500 simulator. There's some car sets for Grand Prix Legends, but you have standing starts in Grand Prix Legends, and you can only have 20 cars. Obviously Indy has 33, and there's not a lot of other sims out there that can do oval racing justice, so just haven't found a sim that you can do it. And it's a big bummer, because the Indy 500 is obviously one of the most important races, and especially back in the 60s with the British invasion and all the F1 drivers doing it, screaming over the top of the hill here, maxing out 8,000. There we go. But especially all the British drivers doing it back in the 60s, it would have been nice to fit in. But we can say that Richie Axelson maybe did it. We just haven't seen it yet. And if someday in the future it's possible to simulate that to some degree, you can always retroactively do it and figure out where he finished at those races. Because there's nothing else really on that day to race. But we will skip over that, or we'll skip over that for the 60s F1 season. But I want to get back to it soon. The Targa Florio video should hopefully come out pretty soon, and then it's not too many races till actual F1 proper starts. And doing Grand Prix Legends stuff is a bit easier since I've done that for years, so it should be a bit easier to record those videos. But appreciate folks' patience with that, because even for myself, I probably think about it way more than folks asking. Or at this point, I have a ton of subscribers that don't even know what that series is, because I haven't done one in so long, so I gotta get back to it. I'll try not to run wide there. But other types of videos too, so the essays have been kind of my passion project. There's another one that, they're not ones that are getting the most views, but they're my most fun to work on. And I want to do a lot more of those, but they're extremely time consuming, as you can imagine. And these have been the ones like Racing Legends review, or the look at revs, or the Targa Florio track overview that I talked about. Just putting together something a little more in depth, really writing something rather than doing a race, but taking a deeper look at a part of sim racing history. And I think there's so many more ideas there. I've got a whole spreadsheet of ideas for different videos, and there's a lot of those essay types on there. I'd love to take a look at, kind of continue where I left off with revs and take a look at the next simulator that came out and build maybe a more library of all of the important sims along the way. Because I know there's a lot of folks out there that don't necessarily know everything about it. And even for myself, doing the revs video, I knew revs existed and I'd tried it before, but it's a little bit before my time. And so really going in depth with it, spending a few weeks learning how to race it, learning its nuances, and actually learning all about it, how it was developed, was really interesting. So it's great to learn as well as show everybody else, what exists out there. So want to do more of those. I don't know what the next one or when the next one will be. Probably will be off something totally different than what I'm planning. I feel like my list of ideas continues to grow because I continually do things that aren't on that list. But it's one of the nice things too with YouTube is just how quickly you can come up with an idea and make it and put it out. Previously, I've done other types of creation or art with music specifically. Some folks have noticed the guitars and stuff in the background of some of my live streams and videos, and with that it's increasingly tough, especially if you want to release music through record labels or things like this, to actually put something out. By the time you write something and record it and then release it officially, it's sometimes months, if not a year, since you initially wrote it, which is a long time for myself. Some people have no problem with that, but I'm kind of on to the next thing as soon as I finish something. And so with YouTube, it's really quick. I'll snip the grass there. YouTube, it's really quick to have an idea, record it, write it, release it, get some feedback on it, talk to folks about it. So you can do all those things. I mean, I've done it in as short as an evening, come up with an idea, record a video about it, post it online, and put it out for the world. So it's a really freeing way to create stuff, and that's one of the more exciting parts. But it becomes increasingly hard to do so, especially as you learn more and more about how to make things. This video will be one of the first in a long time that I've just simply turned on the recorder and hit go, whereas more of them used to be like that. But it's fun to learn how to do everything overall. And then lastly, there's not lastly, because there's a lot of other things I'm doing. Well, I guess two more. There's the casual reviews, which have been a lot of fun to do. You know, just take a look at random sims and games. A lot of them are not ones that I got a chance to try out, and so having more of an excuse to sit and play Spirit of Speed for a couple nights, or dig and learn about how Simbin started and GT Racing 2002, or all the older Papyrus games that I didn't even know the Craftsman Truck Series game got its own release and wasn't only part of NASCAR 3 or 99. Just taking a look at these random software titles. And I have to thank Tim at Race Sim Central, who just has an awesome archive of different stuff, but also follows up with me on things, or has helped me get a couple things running. But it's a lot of fun to look at random things. So I want to do more of that. It would be fun. One of my big inspirations here is LGR, which I don't know if folks watching this might know Clint over there. Get a little loose. There we go. Tank slapper slightly, but catch it. But Clint at LGR, Lazy Game Reviews, one of the biggest YouTube channels, so I imagine a lot of folks know him. But he's a huge inspiration just in how he looks at older software and talks about it, and doesn't have this super loud YouTube presence, just kind of somebody you can listen to. So would love to do more of that, and maybe get the equipment to do actual video boxes and software and all of that, but all sim racing related. That's really my passion, is in racing. And so taking a look at things in that niche, which haven't been covered super well over the years, is hopefully entertaining to everybody. Some of those, seems like a lot of folks enjoy the casual reviews, so I imagine that continuing. Then lastly, the experiment stuff. Outside of the normal history stuff, the experiments are kind of the other thing I think about that I've been doing over the last year, and just posted it, the most recent one of those a week or two ago at this point, with the Auto Union Type C in the wing. So get back on the straightaway, get up to 5th gear, and just miss the top speed completely. max out the gears there. But fun to do the experiments. Those would be so easy to do a ton of, and I think if I don't know, struggle with whether or not I should just crank out different weird combinations of engines and tires and things, because it wouldn't be that hard to throw kind of weird looking tires on a car, or put a wing on a car, but they all become kind of samey. I had played around with doing, when I did my first one of those, which was putting slicks on a Cooper T81 from 1967, and seeing what that did. I was thinking, I'll throw slick tires on a bunch of different cars, but the videos, it ended up being very, very similar, which isn't, for myself, not that much fun. But I think it may be due to revisit. I was thinking if revisiting some of those cars might be interesting, or seeing how they compare, because I really liked, we'll do a third lap, why not? Really liked Gilles Villeneuve's car that I built, the McLaren, which had the Porsche super fat tires on it, but it came from the description of Gilles Villeneuve's ideal F1 car, which basically was a super high powered V8 with very fat tires on it, and kind of your epitome of 70s F1 slide around the corners and all that. And Gilles lusting back to a day before there was ground effects that kept the cars on rails. So I don't know, that car would be fun maybe to revisit and build a couple other ones like it or something, and have some fun with it. But I don't know what the next one of those will be, because again, they're really easy. It would be really easy to make a lot of samey videos, which are just engine swaps and tire swaps and put wings on things. And I think the real money there is kind of unique. What can you do with motorsports in digital form that you could never do in real life for various reasons? Also helps when there's a visual punch to it too. So putting wings on a 30s Grand Prix car, you can just see it instantly. So it kind of looks ridiculous and is interesting to know what'll happen. But it's been fun. So, talking through a couple laps now around the Nürburgring, just in the different types of videos, that to me is kind of the fun thing about making YouTube videos and not cementing myself to one type. I think the series with IndyCar 2 and the 1966, they are the ones that I kind of have a plan for what videos next. But outside of that, the rest of them are just whatever comes up. And I think that's why, it's been possible to make so many videos over the past year. But appreciate to folks, interest in it, because I wouldn't expect all of that to interest everybody. And I know just being subscribed to other channels, when they put out, maybe they make one type of video that I really like, and then the rest of them I don't really care for. It can be a little annoying sometimes, or YouTube really doesn't like that and how their algorithms work. If you have 2 videos in a row that the same people don't want to watch, they will never show the next video to them. But it's just kind of how their format is, and hopefully I can struggle through it somewhat. It seems to have worked so far. So I think I'm going to do a lot more of the same. I don't have any plans to change anything. Just fly through the trees here. Luckily I haven't thrown the car off the road yet. I'm just kind of waiting for it. I'm kind of half driving here. Want to do more of the same. Want to do more of the longer videos and things, but time, as is with everything and probably most folks, it's just always how much time do you actually have. This was a couple questions I got recently. It's what do I do? Is YouTube a full-time thing? It absolutely isn't. I still have a full-time job outside of this, and I think it would take quite a leap to want to do this full-time for a couple reasons. Outside of the monetary, just in the change of how you do it might not be the best. What you have to focus on to do it just would make it less fun to do. And it's 100% for me. It's 100% for fun. It's not for the YouTube parts of it. But no major changes planned for things. I want to get back to doing more of the 66 series, and I'm hoping here as winter starts to settle in my part of the world that I'll have some more time to really focus on that. If I can finally get through the Targa Florio here, get onto the actual F1 stuff, it'll be a lot easier for me to actually do those. And the 66 F1 season is such a good season. It came very close to that wall there. Yeah, the 66 F1 season, and really from 66 through 69, which is luckily what Grand Prix Legends covers, one of the most interesting times in F1 because of the advent of downforce, and for 66 it's going to be the creation of all these bigger engines, and the teams will progress at different rates. You won't see Lotus, for example, really hit their stride until they come out with the 49 in 1967. But at different times, different teams are going to be competitive because of the engines they're putting in, and then once things seem to settle on the engine front, then we get downforce, and it totally changes it up again. It's just a really interesting time for racing. Be a fun one to do. So I really want to get through that, and that's hopefully going to be the focus here for the next few weeks, next few months, maybe. All right. So I did ask in a community post, which is a thing. If you don't see those, I did ask if folks had any questions for me, and maybe I'll throw up a little picture of who asked the questions, but figured I'd answer some of those, and I don't know, always brings up interesting thoughts and things. But I had one from Thomas Vestergaard, who asked what my favorite Abarth model is, which is a great question, because the Abarth, I feel like it somewhat is kind of a silly car in racing games, although it's a great racing car. I think putting it as your kind of first tier race car. But for myself, the 595 SS in Assetto Corsa, which is one of the ones that comes with Assetto Corsa, I believe, it's the 1950s model, would have to be the one I choose. And if I had to justify it in any way, it's just how simple that car is in that form. Down to second gear. Ooh. A little late braking for the carousel there. But the early Abarth just doesn't have any electronics or anything like that. It's kind of like the Mini Cooper. It would actually be a fun pairing. I'm not sure which car is quicker. I have to think the Mini Cooper is probably quicker, just because it has much more of a history of being quick, but we'll have to see. Maybe sometime try those two cars out side by side. That would probably have to be it. I had Incorrect Beans ask me if I could pick any car and any track, no matter the timeline, what combo would I drive for a day? Which is a great question, a very tough one to ask. Thinking that I don't have to worry about the time that it's in really opens up some possibilities. Would you want to go way back to some of the earliest circuits and things that existed that even in Sims we can't really experience super well because there's no photographs to recreate them super accurately. But I figured it would be a good time and something I want to make a video on at some point, my favorite track overall. But that would be Clermont-Ferrand, or Charade, also known as, in France. It was the track that F1 raced at a few different years in the 60s, 65, I believe, 68, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe 70, but maybe beyond that as well. Still a track today, Charade. Much shorter now, though, or might still have a long loop, but the main track's more of a Grand Prix style circuit. But in the 60s, natural terrain road course, and I think the only video I've done there was the 1965 race, so way back when, 2011, when I did those. And the problem with that is the track really doesn't exist for Sims outside of, so there's a Grand Prix Legends version of it, which is very nice for Grand Prix Legends standards, and that version was converted to the Simbin Sim, so it does exist for Power and Glory and GTR2 and all that. But outside of those, it doesn't exist in vintage form. I think there might be a modern one for Assetto Corsa here. But that would probably be the track. That track just has such a nice flow to it. And it'd be incredible to see, then how it was, because even in the Grand Prix Legends version, you have a nice overview of the city as you sweep through the mountains there, but it's not something that you're seeing the rendition of it in the game. So seeing that in real life. And it's also the city or the town where Michelin tire's from, so all bonus there. As for car around there, I think it'd have to be any kind of lower powered, vintage car. And one of my favorites is the Alpha GTA. It's just a nice, balanced car that you can throw sideways. So we'll max out the revs here again. But the GTA is a great car. It's in Assetto Corsa here, and a bunch of different Sims, but a nice one that you can kind of throw sideways. The street version of it's kind of perfect for that. Well, the race version's a little more horsepower and stuff, but that would be a fun car. Just a nice, simple car, no electronics, just nice gear shift and maybe even just a four speed or something, but throw it around there, a nice curvy track would kind of be the optimal situation. So nice one to think about, and appreciate Incorrect Beans for sending that as a question. We got a Frank. What did Frank ask? If this was a good one. So if some of these different racing series could return to some historic tracks, which one would I pick? So he specifically asked for F1, IndyCar, and NASCAR. So if each of those were to return to a historic track, which one would I pick? We'll do another lap. It's probably going to be a full Grand Prix by the end of this. But it's a good question. So, if these series these days were to go back. So I took this question as being the track maybe still has to exist, or could be something that could be raced on these days. So, no NASCAR to Texas World Speedway, for instance, because that doesn't exist anymore, or Riverside, or, it doesn't exist anymore, but things that do exist. So I'll get NASCAR out of the way. I was thinking about this, and like, what tracks do I want them to go to? And a lot of people are on board with this. I think North Wilkesboro. But for myself, I know there's talks about going there as the dirt track. I would like to see it as asphalt, personally. I don't know if the asphalt's good enough there, if it would need a repave, and if they repave it, there's all kinds of bad things about racing after repaving. So, but North Wilkesboro would be a good one for the history, to get another short track in NASCAR, and just kind of the perfect place for them to race, especially with how much is changing in that sport, unfortunately. Or fortunately, we'll see how it goes. But it'd be good to have something that's kind of a return to the past, to have alongside all the new, have something old too. So North Wilkesboro for NASCAR would be a good one. For F1, it's a tough one too. Watkins Glen was one I was thinking of, as a U.S. track. We certainly don't need another U.S. track. They're thinking about Austin and Miami and probably somewhere else, maybe Indianapolis. But if they were to go to somewhere in the U.S. and maybe drop those others, Watkins Glen, I fear what would have to happen to Watkins Glen, though, to have F1 back there. So maybe for the best that they don't. But that would be an interesting one. But I think overall, I feel like F1 is missing a good French Grand Prix, because the French Grand Prix, really the first Grand Prix, right? It's kind of how the whole thing is named. would be you need the French Grand Prix, and for years there wasn't a French Grand Prix for a while, and the circuits that it's been at, just in my opinion, I think a lot of folks' opinion, hasn't been the best. So it would be amazing to see the return of some good circuit for the French Grand Prix. I don't know what the circuit was, and I actually took a quick look at what tracks are operating in France these days, and I'm sure there's something I'm missing, but for things I could possibly imagine F1 going to with maybe a little bit of work, I'm not sure what it would be, but maybe you could make something nice out of the Bugatti circuit at Le Mans, or certainly that would be better than Paul Ricard is today to race there. And I know Charade still exists, so what could you do with that, that circuit? Or it would just be nice to have somewhere for F1 to call home in France that's a compelling venue. So that would be my pick for F1 there. And IndyCar, which is kind of my passion. If they were to go somewhere, I think they need another high-speed oval. We only have Texas and Indianapolis, and Texas has never, in my opinion, been the same idea as a high-speed oval. So I really would like a Fontana, which they may not be turning that into a short track, so we never know. But California Speedway or Michigan or even Pocono, I know a lot of folks are mixed on that, but I really would like to see them at another high-speed track to return to. So those are my picks for that, Frank. It's kind of a long response to that, but it's a nice one to think about. What would be the circuits I would want to see series return to. So we'll pull it down further. Just trying to look at my notes here while I'm driving, which is one of the skills you learn, multitasking. So Ryan Ferry asked, this was another interesting one. Happy Ryan asked this. So how do older sims actually stack up against the newer ones? And this is a good thing to talk about, actually. So I play a lot of older sims. Probably equally on out of videos or making videos about older sims versus newer ones. How do they actually stack up? If I look at Automobilista 2 versus Grand Prix Legends, or it's tough to really get rid of all the nostalgia which goes along with some of them, and I don't know if it's a mutual feeling or folks are learn to appreciate them, but I could imagine like turning on and watching IndyCar Racing 2 for the first time, never having played it or seen it, and it just really not seeming interesting. There's plenty of, there's enough folks that seem to enjoy it that I know at least a few others feel the same way as I do, but I can totally see that if you didn't grow up with it, that maybe it's not ever going to be interesting to you. But there is a certain charm to the older sims, and there's certain features that they don't have, and I think part of it is just having come up with the older sims that make me want the features that older sims have. I've done plenty of online racing, did iRacing for years, done random races on the channel and things over the past year. But online racing for myself has never been the main focus of sim racing. It's always been about experiencing cars and tracks and putting myself into what I see, or read about. And it's just not what newer sims are focused on. Or the one exception to that really is the F1 Codemasters games. They really, with the new story mode especially, are trying to put you in some sort of story or make you feel like you're actually a Grand Prix driver these days. So that's what the older sims do for me a lot, especially like the Grand Prix Legends or IndyCar. Just the way the AI can react and interact. The Jeff Crammond sims are another great category that I've really done very little here with, but hopefully that'll change at some point. They just make you feel like you're in an event so much more than some of the newer sims. And having competent AI opponents that both you can race against and actually race well, but that also have some sort of character to them, the way they break down or how aggressive they are, or the fact that they can complete race after race and not wreck out randomly, and they actually have names and maybe mirror something of a real driver, just help add to that. And so it's just one of those things I haven't exactly found in newer sims. So to me, driving wise, newer sims absolutely the way to go. If you just want to do this, what I'm doing right now, although Assetto Corsa is getting quite far in age compared to what a lot of folks would think is new, anything of the newer breed drives really well, and there's no debating that. But for total experience and feeling like you're there and having good races, for me the older sims tend to do it better. There's certainly gray area there, and there's good fun to be had across the board. The best part of all, and the main sentiment I leave folks with on that thought, is you can do it all. You can have both. You don't need to pick the new sims or the old sims. You can just play both of them. So that's all you need. But great question, Ryan. All right, moving on. Daniel, do I have any so Daniel Kelly asked me if I have any real life racing experience or what got me into motorsports. I'll try to keep this one brief because I would maybe run out of gas here soon. But real life experience, I really don't have any real life experience, and would love to. I think, like a lot of folks, racing in real life would be a really fun thing to do. But don't really have real life experience racing. I've done a few like racing experiences and things like that in the past, but all pretty much sim racing. So I don't know how I would do in a real car and things like that. But no real life experience. But for my motorsports background, I mean, racing's just something that I can't really remember what my first racing memories would be. But my father, enjoyed watching racing. Certainly not to the extent that I do, but it was on it was on TV, Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar, and so through the osmosis of seeing it and going to races, probably the thing that sealed the deal. The second carousel here, but we have a lot of short track oval racing in my neck of the woods here in New England on the quarter mile, half mile pavement rings that I know a lot of folks don't understand, but if you go to them, anybody that doesn't feel like they like oval racing, go to one of those events and it might change your mind. But went to a bunch of those as a kid, so I think that combined with watching it on TV, and then of course the games, the Sims, playing IndyCar, NASCAR, being able to kind of watch the race on TV and then do the same thing, as I was growing up, just kind of helped seal the deal. So that's where it all came from, but luckily able to share some of that here. All right, just a few more of these questions. We'll probably do one more lap after this. Be almost a full race, probably the most laps I've ever done around the Nordschleife in one video. But Harrison P. just said community races, which I know what that means. I have a lot of messages about this, and man, it's been one of the hardest things is just having to say no to things. There's just so many events happening all the time, and it's been awesome it's one of the things that's been nice about starting a Discord and having folks there and people that poke in. Yeah, I'll do one more lap here. I'll try to get this all done, I swear. But having a Discord where folks, can hang out and then advertise or sign up, just find out about events, has been nice. But yeah, there's just so many events happening all the time, and based off limited time for making things, I already talked about how many different video ideas and all that I have. Just doing online races is just really hard to schedule. They're very rigid in scheduling. You obviously have to be available when they're happening. So they're either at a weird time, or I've got other things I need to work on at those times, or there wouldn't be any videos on something else if I was doing those races. So it's hard. Community races itself, so I kicked off kind of it's almost coming on a year now. It wasn't too long after I restarted all this, where I did the race at Montreal with the F1 GP mod. And I have so many ideas for more of those, and the guys over at AMSU there have been super nice in reaching out and trying to get me to either do events or sign up for things, and I have some ideas with that, and I would like to do more. So stay tuned for that. It's tough to do them too, because I don't think, this isn't a huge community, but putting up something, you get a few hundred folks that sign up. So how do you accommodate a few hundred folks? Ooh, missed a breaking point there. How do you accommodate a few hundred folks in an online race? Do you do qualifying? Do you do splits? Do you just do first come, first serve? All those things to decide. But I want to do more community races. It'd be fun to do something more casual too. I guess anybody make it this far into this video, because we're probably on over an hour at this point. But if you're interested in maybe doing pickup races or something like that, it could be fun to just throw a stream on and see who joins something at some point. But yeah, want to do more of that. We'll see if I can actually organize some over the next year. Daniel Sanchez and a few other folks have asked about GPL install, and I mentioned this in a couple of videos or streams maybe, but Grand Prix Legends install tutorial video is going to happen. It already was made, but I've been working with a few of the folks in the Grand Prix Legends community, and specifically on a couple packs, which are going to make it a lot easier to actually install the sim, and basically one-click upgrades to all your tracks and things like that. So those things just take a long time to develop, and it's been quite a few months now since I first started making a tutorial and then got involved with them. So I think the plan is to hopefully have that stuff out by the end of the year, and certainly want to, because I get a lot of questions on it, and by releasing some install tutorial, I know I can hopefully help get more folks running Grand Prix Legends, which is what we all want. So that's happening. It's going to happen, and I'm trying to make it as easy as possible while still showing all the stuff that's needed. It's a pretty tough sim to get running, unfortunately, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible with the different things that are coming out. So stay tuned for that as well, hopefully here in the next few months. Herschel asked me which game would I recommend for somebody first starting or first coming into contact with racing sims. That's a tough one too, because what do you enjoy about racing would probably be my main question, but I'd recommend not jumping into something super technical or challenging. In my opinion, don't go for R Factor 2 or Grand Prix Legends or anything like that that's tough to set up. I'd probably side on the side of something slightly more mainstream arcade, or even some of the newer stuff. So, if you like modern racing, things like Assetto Corsa Competizione is quite a good sim, or even iRacing if you want to do online racing, although it's expensive, is probably the best place to learn how to race others quite well. So those would be recommendations for online or modern racing. Since we mostly talk about vintage here, I think Automobilista 2, although there's certain complaints about the physics or the track models, or it's all being worked on, but I think that's a great sim to jump into as a first one, just because of the ease of use. You can pretty quickly set up some controls and go racing there. So I think that's a great starting point. Something like Assetto Corsa here is a lot of fun, but installing mods, even though some of us have been doing it for a long time, it's not super easy. So if you're just going to use the stock content, you're maybe more limited there, but it's still a good one. I think it was on sale pretty cheap pretty recently. So those would be recommendations. I would probably stay away from the older sims until you've got a handle, unless you're a computer person. But it's probably easier to get started with something a little more modern that's got a lot of support out there today. Learn how to race, learn what you like, and then move on from it. And there's nothing wrong either with, going maybe more arcade with your Gran Turismos or Forzas and things, and just having fun with those, and learning what you like about cars, and then getting a little more serious with it at some point if that's what you like. But another good question from Herschel there. See if I can spot the next one while I'm trying to navigate this faster section. This was a good one from Der Bayer, who asked me, in more or less words, who from racing history would I like to have a chat with? And I think I've probably come up with 100 answers for this. But the one I thought of first, and luckily he's still around, so maybe there's a slight chance that it could happen, but I think Jackie Stewart would be a pretty awesome guy to talk to for so many reasons. For his Formula One experience and being an F1 driver in the 60s and knowing all the greats and everything, being a great himself, but also for all the work he did afterwards with broadcasting in the U.S., which is not remembered as much, at least from what I see online. But he was a broadcaster for years with ABC and did tons of different races and things, so he's got a lot of experience with all that. I think it'd be an incredibly interesting guy to talk to. He also seems like one of the nicest guys of all time, so he would be pretty great person to talk to. But I could probably talk to any classic racing star and have a good time with that. Another good one. And then a comment or a question from Casual Sim Racer. What vintage car would I like to see created that's not in any Sims? That's another great question, and wanted to put this one because a classic sim racer's got a YouTube channel, which is a good one, and he's also working on with a group a bunch of 30s F1 cars or Grand Prix cars. It wouldn't be F1 in the 30s, but some basically 1934 to 1937 F1 cars and things. So excited for those to come out. Hopefully pretty soon start seeing those. But yeah, if I could pick any cars, there's just so many. But if I'm thinking about things that aren't really available, just trying not to spin the car here. The Delahaye car, I'm trying to remember the exact model, but I recently read, or a little while back read, the book Faster, which talks about Rene Dreyfus racing the Delahaye in the 1930s, and basically was able to beat the German Mercedes and Auto Union cars, driving a much less funded program instead of his clear talent and some mechanical ingenuity. But that would be a really interesting car to try out, and I don't think I've seen that one for other Sims. I'm trying to remember the exact model. It might be the 145. Throw up something to correct it, but that would be a cool one to see. Or really any of the older cars. The problem is, and probably what the classic sim racer is struggling with the 30s set, is just finding source material to actually build something that's somewhat realistic. There's just not diagrams or schematics and things out there for these cars, so it's really hard. There's multiple reasons why you don't see a lot of them for Sims, and the main one is that they just don't. No material exists. It's a lot easier to create modern cars that have lots of imagery, and you probably find schematics and things than those. But yeah, that would be one. But interested to see everything that comes out there. Alright, so we'll round out of the carousel and head down the straightaway one more time here. But didn't do any serious laps or anything around the track, but a lot of fun with this car, and I'm actually surprised I didn't run out of fuel. So I don't remember how much fuel I put in it. We'll have to be getting towards the end. But set the time to kind of a dawn or evening time, golden hour time, and grab your favorite car with your favorite track. It's always a great experience to do. I think overall, YouTube has been a lot of fun over the last year, and I've tried to not take it super seriously because that's the thing that can get you burnt out. I'm happy I'm a little bit older now. I think it's a little easier to handle, and you know, there's a lot of stresses that come with it for no reason really, because it really is just a fun hobby, but you do get pressured into the way YouTube works and making sure you post things in a certain way. And even though 99.9% of all of you are very nice and say great things and let me know about great things, that 0.1% of folks that are mean just stick out like a sore thumb. But been able to ignore all that and have a lot of fun with it over the last year, and appreciate you all coming along for the ride with me. There'll be a lot more stuff coming out over the year. Might slow down at points or speed up at other points. One of the great things is I don't have an exact plan about it, but I hope you enjoy that too. Let me know if there's anything that you specifically want to see. Always interested in folks' thoughts. But if you've made it this far, thanks for coming along for a ride. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back soon with more.